All right, so a very good evening. Many thanks for joining us on State of Affairs. My name is Kweku Temin. Tonight we have a bouquet of issues to discuss so long as business is concerned. GRA officials, that's the Ghana Revenue Authority, moves into the Central Business District and also other parts of Accra to clamp down on shops that are not charging VAT. Indeed, some of them have their concerns. Tonight, we would want to hear from the traders and also get the views of the Ghana Revenue Authority, why they had to really embark on this initiative. We would want to talk about it and fill you in on every bit of the details. Tonight also we would want to touch on pricing as inflation jumps to 18.9% for the month of May. What are the indicators driving inflation? You would just want to get every bit of those details. Am I hearing that Ghana is lagging behind when it comes to the growth potential? Indeed, Ivory Coast is ahead, Kenya is ahead, Senegal is ahead. So what indeed is actually happening? Tonight you want to hear these stories and many other details. Stay with us here because the businessman is on shortly with the State of Affairs. Do stay after this break. We're back with more. Right, so many thanks for staying with us. We touched on every bit of the issues, but now let's enjoy some news items. Of course, business stories making headlines, and then when we come back, we'll move into some discussions. Now we'll move straight to the southern part of the country, and we are touching on some fisher issues. Now, fishermen at Chokome near Botiano, a suburb of Accra, have complained about the slowdown of business in recent times. According to them, the usage of light by some fishermen for fishing is a major problem for the fishing industry today. Alice Aite, who spoke to the fisher folk, reports other activities like stone and sand winning along the shores have also contributed to the declines of the fisher folks' fortunes.
Botiano, Kokrobite and Oshie are well-known neighboring fishing communities that contribute greatly to the fishing productivity of the country. However, for some time now, fishermen in these areas have been complaining about the fading off of their businesses because they do not get enough catch when they go fishing. This has made the once busy Chokome seashore, which used to be a hub for fisher folks in Accra, empty. Fishmongers now struggle or fight to get fish to buy from the fishermen when they come back from sea. When the news team spoke with some fishermen at Chokome, they attributed the slow pace to illegal usage of explosives and lights for fishing by some fishermen who they claim come from other towns to fish here at Chokome.
The fishing business first is going on. You see, first is going on. But now they are giving light. It's like they are putting light on the seaside. So if you go take our own, we can't get the fish because the light is doing that this thing.
Light, you know, a banusa, a namono, or mutumiba, mpuano. Say, me 2 nights in a ultimate or more simple, but a light in India, or Munina Ako, a tree, and Nitina and Amono, so 2 nights in Ukra, maybe Benyabe G4 me, Mesa. I interlight in a idea a high or a cream worm.
Despite warnings and threats by the authorities to clamp down on the activities of fishermen who illegally use lights and explosives for fishing, there are a lot more people who still engage in such activities. This, according to fishmongers at Chokome, has brought untold hardship to them since they only get a small quantity of fish to buy at very high cost.
Zizai ungora fi mejia anaba na miasro yiro tojia mukpo nanako ama nyunyumu okula visuara agbo abarigu
fitiane da pune de sei tiana nanano ahaye nasu River for Bakuna. A job of Conamo de Winum. Abre. Namas is a pomus as a naman banner, almost the lights no call. Coipina namas and a chintiama, a few way young one, papa.
All right, so wherever the details are, we'll make sure we'll take you there. That was a story from Chokome. We'll now move on to some economic indicators. And here, inflation rate for the month of May has risen to 18.9% from the figure of 18.7% that was in April. So the figure has moved up from 18.7% to 18.9%. Inflation definitely has gone up. Dr. Philomena Nyako, government statistician, said this on Wednesday.
The rise was attributed to the non-food group, which includes transport, housing, water, electricity, gas and other fuels. Greater Accra recorded the highest inflation rate of 22.6%, higher than the national average, while Upper East recorded the lowest rate of 15%. The year-on-year non-food inflation rate for May 2016 was 25%, compared with the 24.8% in April 2016. The year-on-year food inflation for May 2016 was 8.5%, compared with the 8.4% recorded in April 2016. The year-on-year non-food inflation rate of 25% was about 3 times that of the food inflation of 8.5% for May 2016. The year-on-year rate for locally produced items, which is 19%, was 0.5 percentage points higher than that of the imported items, which stands at 18.5%.
All right, so if you're watching us tonight, inflation is that indicator that is used to measure price changes. So same period last year, when you talk about May, inflation has just jumped up a little bit marginally from the 18.7 figure to 18.9. We'll want to later on tonight hold special discussions on it and try to find out the indicators that kept driving inflation up and projecting into the future if inflation would be maintained or will see a decline in inflation. Now, don't you forget that government has a desire to ensure that inflation is dropped to a single digit. So we'll want to get you all those details later in our discussion when we have our guests come into the studio. But let me just quickly move on to something that also came up today here in Accra, and that's the Circle branch of Franco Trading Enterprise has been shut down by the Ghana Revenue Authority for tax evasion. So it's believed that they've evaded tax. Because of that, a task force moved in and shut it down. Now, according to the Special Revenue Mobilization Task Force, the branch of the company, even though has VAT certified receipts, refused to issue it out to customers. So those are some of the pictures on your screens. Now, at the time the task force visited the premises, that was today, Thursday, the company was issuing out of computer-generated invoices which have not been approved by any revenue authority, which is charged also. Now, it is believed that the people there were generating those invoices. It has also reached our attention here that several other shops were closed down. So it was not only Franco Trading Enterprises, but several other shops were closed down. Meanwhile, the chairman of the Phone Dealers Association, Osei Agyeman, told the media that they have been treated unfairly since they were given a short notice by the task force. He vowed to mobilize his members to fight the task force from tomorrow, Friday 17th. That's if they should revisit. But fortunately for us, we have Osei Agyeman on the line to really help us understand some issues that he has raised or some concerns that he has raised. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Osei Agyeman. Now, you are the leader for the mobile phone dealers, especially around the Circle area. You are also an official of GUTA, that's the Ghana Union of Traders Association. So, indeed, we are happy to have you on the line. Can you confirm that, indeed, your members had evaded tax and for which cause their shops were closed down today? Okay, if Mr. Osei Agyeman is on the line, thank you for joining us here on GH1. I would want to find out from you, indeed, exactly what happened
today at Circle when the task force came in. Kwaku, it's very faint, but if I can hear you correctly, you're asking about when the task force came to Circle, what happened there?
That's right, exactly so.
Yes. In fact, yesterday, my attention was drawn to an advert in the paper telling us that mobile phone dealers and the accessories are supposed to pay VAT. In fact, when we saw the advert, we were contemplating on it and seeing how best we can go about it. But just this morning, when we opened our shops, there was this task force from the GRA on us. And I went there to ask for who was leading the task force. They showed me, even he wasn't prepared to tell me his name, but I spoke to him all right. Then I told him that these taxes that they were talking about, we are discussing it. We are in discussion with the GRA and the Ministry of Finance, and we haven't come to any conclusion. So if anything at all, at least they should have consulted us for us to know exactly what they wanted to do. But they wouldn't budge. They wouldn't listen to whatever I was saying. So that was it. And I told them that at least they could have informed us, and taking tax is something that at least they should have patience in taking it. So that was what happened. In fact, if you are talking to me, if you can raise the volume a little bit, because I'm having difficulty here.
All right, certainly we would love to do that. But Mr. Osayi-Agyeman, can you also confirm that your members indeed had VAT invoices but issued other invoices or receipts instead of the VAT invoice, which they are mandated by law to issue?
When you say mandated by law, in fact, what we knew lately was that we weren't issuing VAT invoices because of the top tax that was put on this mobile phone some time ago. So if the law has changed or something, at least they should have come, educated us on it before they come asking for people to pay VAT or something. Because no education has gone on, and as well as we know that on mobile phones, we don't pay VAT on mobile phones. So if you come and you tell somebody to go and write VAT invoice on mobile phone, I think it won't go down well with the person. So what they have to do is come around, educate people, let them know if we are supposed to pay VAT. They should come and let us know. We have an association. At least they can contact the association or even contact Buta before they come to us, crap on us the way they did. They came with the intention of coming to disgrace us, and it was bad.
Mr. Osayi-Agyeman, just before you go, now, my reporters are quoted at saying that you were not too happy, so you told them in plain language that if they should come tomorrow to the same venue, you will mobilize your members and you will resist any closure. Can you confirm this?
It wasn't exactly what I said. I told them that I'll mobilize my people so that nobody can come and cramp on them like that again. That's what I said.
Why would you do such a thing? They are law enforcement agencies. They are revenue collectors. Why would you want to resist them?
If they are mobile, they are revenue collectors, at least they should dialogue with us. It's not that if you want to take, you are supposed to take revenue. So you just cramp on anybody you meet on the street and start taking revenue from the person. At least you come, dialogue with the person. Nobody, we all know that we have to pay revenue. But this is not the way they should collect revenues from us. If you come and you lock shops, you lock the shops, how do they get the money to come and pay the revenue? If you come and you lock their shops, how are they supposed to get the money to pay the revenue?
Osayi-Agyeman, tonight I am told that you are locked up in a crucial meeting with your members. What are some of the decisions you are taking ahead of tomorrow?
In fact, I can't disclose what we are discussing now because we haven't come to any conclusion. When we get to when it comes to any conclusion, we make the media know. In fact, we are planning of having a media soiree. So when it comes to that, we inform you so that you come and cover it.
I'm anticipating that you are preparing to meet the media. I know you are still on the line, but just before you also go, I would want to know, have you heard from the revenue collectors? Are they willing to meet with you, in fact, after today's operation?
In fact, we haven't made any approach. So I wouldn't be able to speak to that. I don't know. We haven't gone to them yet, so I don't know whether they are prepared to meet us or not.
Many thanks, Mr. Osei Agyeman, for joining us tonight on GH1, specifically on State of Affairs. Indeed, he joined us to explain issues and circumstances that led to the closure of Franco Trading Center and other mobile phone shops in and around Circle today. It happened this evening. Indeed, we're grateful that you joined us. Osei Agyeman is the leader of the Mobile Phone Dealers Association here in Accra. He's also a member of GUTA, an executive member, and of course they have registered their unhappiness. But we would always make sure that we get to the other side of the story. So what we are doing tonight is to ensure that we get to the Ghana Revenue Authority, we get to the man who was in charge of this afternoon's operation, to get his side of the story also. So we're making frantic efforts to reach out to Mr. Theophilus Gaskin, who is with the GRA, that's the Ghana Revenue Authority. Mr. Gaskin is indeed one of the senior executives with the GRA. He led the operations today to give us exactly their side of the story. Now, one thing I can tentatively put down that the mobile phone dealers mentioned was that there was an advert in the papers yesterday. Just about 24 hours ago, there was an advert in the paper. So they were contemplating on it. And just then today, they moved into action. So they think they have not been treated fairly. They think they were not given ample time to really deliberate on how to go in and solve their tax issues. And for some of them, even mobile phone has issues of talk tax and the like. So they can't even anticipate really when they say they should sign for a 17.5% VAT, what it actually means. We would want to get to the law and get to the details of it and actually find out really why it has become necessary for them to actually be paying the 17.5% VAT, for which reason several shops today were clamped down, closed down by the GRA's tax force. And of course, it's not been a pleasant one for the mobile phone traders. Indeed, it's taken us a while to get officials of the GRA come on the line. So let me just buy time a little bit and go to Uncle Benefson. Indeed, he is coming to your constituency just to tell you about that candidate and really what happened. And as we move on to election 2016, the November polls, what you should be looking out for. Benefson is up next.
Yes, Greater Accra, I'm a woman, is the king of the three swing regions. Greater Accra is very cosmopolitan. As per the population census, these are the percentages of the ethnic groups in Greater Accra, and it gives you a fair idea. Ga, 18.8%. Ewe, 17.9%. Fanti, 10.6%. Dangbi, 10.3%. Ashanti, 8.3%. Ekwapim 4.8, Kwawu 4.6, Achim 4.4, Dagomba 1.3, and Nabdom 1%. These are the top 10 top ethnic groups in the Greater Accra region. So if you add the Gadangbe, you'll be having something like 27, almost 29% in Greater Accra region. I'm sure you're surprised that there are more Fantis than Ashantis in Greater Accra. Fantis 10.6, Ashanti 8.3, and Ewes are nearly 18%. I'll give you this ethnic breakdown to show you that as a country, electorally, we are very lucky to have 3 regions who no political party can say is their political backyard. Brong-Ahafo region is also joining the ranks of the swing regions. So this time, let's deal with Greater Accra and see. In 2004, MPP got 52%, NDC got 46.4%. 2008 first round, and the MPP went down from 52% to 45%. NDC went up from 46%, 46.4 to 52. And in 2012, the MPP increased from 2008 of 45% to 46. Now the NDC went down a bit. The NDC also increased actually from 52.1 to 52.3. It tells you that the small parties were virtually marched away. It is fair to also give you the background of the ethnic group that make up the Western Central. In Western region, Fantis make up 18.2%, Wassa 11.7%, Sehui 10.9%, Nzuma 9.5%, Ashanti 7.3%, and Ewes are 5.9% in Western region. In Central region, Fantis 56.6%, Agona 6.2%, Ewutu and Senya 5.2%, Ewe 4.7%, Ashanti 2.4%. Now, these 2 regions have also, they are like the assistant leaders behind the Greater Accra region in ensuring that they decide who becomes king, the president, and have more seats in parliament. In Western region, the MPP had 58.5% in 2004. It went down drastically to 46% in 2008 first round, and 2012 it went down further to 45.5%. The NDC in Central region, they got 39.2%. In 2004, it went up to 50.6% in 2008 first round, and it went up further to 52.1%. Wait. Not, yes. I'm sure you are saying in your head, 2008, Professor Mose, a native of Central region, contested. But I will show you that thinking is like going to fetch water with basket. Useless. So, I mean, this part of this program that we do to help educate you and make solid analysis. President Mo's ethnic group never changed. When he lost to Kufuor, he was still from Central region and he won. One of the reasons we had done some work was the people of Central region did not, they believed the perception that ex-President Rawlings will control President Mos. That was why he lost. So those who've been saying that, Professor Mose won Central region in 2000 because of a Fanti, ask yourself, was he not a Fanti in 2008 when he lost to ex-President Kufuor? Western region, the same argument. Fantis, you can see that the 2 regions, majority of the people who are there are from Fantis. So when you are arguing, if you don't know, learn.
All right, so many thanks for staying with us. We're grateful that you kept faith with us. If you're just joining us, it's still State of Affairs on GH1. My name is Kweku Timin, and we're bringing you up to speed on the latest business happenings in the country. Already we've had a feel of the challenges among some fisher folks. We've talked about inflation jumping up to 18.9% for the month of May, away from the 18.7 figure for the month of April. Later on, we'll delve into these issues. We would want to look at Ghana's debt situation also. So in just about a while, we moved into something that happened this afternoon, and that's the Ghana Revenue Authority moving into parts of Accra to clamp down on mobile phone dealers. Let me specifically say that it happened mostly around the Circle area. Now, we've had a feel of the traders. They are totally not happy about the situation. We're doing well to get to the Ghana Revenue Authority for them to tell us their side of the story. So on the line right now is Mr. Theophilus Gaskin. He is a chief with the Ghana Revenue Authority. He's a tax officer, and he's joined us. Indeed, he led the action today. Many thanks for joining us. And I must say, we appreciate you, Mr. Gaskin, for joining us, because you said you were almost in a meeting with your commissioner, but you still made time for us. We're very much grateful. But one thing that we need clarification on, what really motivated you moving into the trading areas of Circle today to clamp down on the traders, all in the name of they not issuing VAT invoice? Unfortunately, I'm told we've lost him on the line. In just about a while, we'll try to get him. But one man who would also be touching on some of the issues concerning taxation is right here with me in the studio, Nana Fredu Agyemang-Pambuo. He is the executive chairman, Invest Pro Limited. And Nana, you're so very much welcome tonight. We're grateful having you. And I must say, you look dapper for the discussions tonight.
Thank you, Kweku. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm glad having you. Let me go to my viewers out there and run through some of the things tonight we would want to critically look at. And now, we mentioned it early on, we're trying to get the GRA back on the line to discuss with us some of these issues. GRA closed down some shops. I know Franco Trading Center is one of the major mobile phone shops that were closed down today. Indeed, the traders are not too happy. They are saying they will resist them if they come in tomorrow to embark on that same initiative. We'll be looking at inflation jumping at factors influencing inflation price going up. We would want to talk about Ghana's debt situation as of now. Indeed, if it has ballooned so much that we've moved out of the brackets that the Bretton Woods institution tell us that is way above that threshold that we could call comfortable. So we want to look at all these developments, but in the meantime, we're trying to get to the Ghana Revenue Authority to react to some of these concerns that came up today. Unfortunately, we're told that they want to remain tight-lipped, even though they promised us that they would grant us this interview. Let's hold on patiently and see. As and when they get on the line, we'll make sure we hear from them. But indeed, one of the major concerns of the traders is you advertised in the newspapers just yesterday, and today you were at my shop telling me I need to close down. No information, no education. Indeed, this is not fair to business in the country. These are not my words. Indeed, that's why I would want you to react to it. So if you are anywhere in the country and you are a revenue collector, indeed, try and let Mr. Theophilus Gaskin know that we're trying to reach him. As and when we get him, we'll put him on the line, because he assured us that tonight he would be explaining to our viewers why they took that action. Well, I'll currently have to go on to my guest, Nana Pambuo. A very good evening. Thanks for joining us, Nana.
Thank you, Kweku. It's a pleasure.
There are a few issues that I've touched on, so let me run it by you shortly, and then you give me your thoughts on it before we move into the debt situation of the country. These are things we were touching on early on before you just joined us. So GRA moves into Circle today, closed down Franco Trading Enterprise, as well as other businesses in and around the enclave. The concern is that even though they are registered with the VAT, they are not issuing the invoice. Now, the traders, on the other hand, say, yes, you advertised in the newspapers a day, and then you got in today. Indeed, so there is a pull it here, pull it there. And who wants you get your thoughts on it gently before we move on into other matters?
Thank you, Kweku. It's a pleasure to be here, as I said.
Great.
These issues do not happen in isolation. If you look at the 2016 budget, Government.
All right, Nana, let's just get the revenue thoughts, and then now you can react to it. So thank you very much, Mr. Theophilus Gaskin, for joining us on the line. Shortly tell us what motivated your move into going out into the Circle area to close down some shops.
Yes, thank you very much for giving me some other time. The Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority has noted with concern that persons who deal in mobile phones and accessories have failed to charge VAT as required by the law. To ensure that all such persons and others in a similar situation comply with the provisions of the tax laws and regulations, the Special Revenue Mobilization Task Force was tasked to undertake an exercise to enforce compliance with the following: filing of tax returns, that is for all tax types, payment of taxes, as well as a recovery of arrears due to the state, corporate taxes, withholding taxes including PAYE, and then rent taxes including goodwill. See, it's very clear that the rents that are charged on monthly basis constitute just a minute proportion of the entire rent paid to rent income earners. And so this goodwill has always been swept under the carpet. We want to indicate to all prospective rent income earners that the goodwill is part of the consideration and must be included as part of rental income for tax purposes. We also dealt with the value-added tax within the area, and then there are some other taxes that are to be dealt with. So the entire reason why we moved is to ensure that the tax collection machinery is strengthened so that all non-compliant taxpayers are forced or compelled to respect the laws of this country so that they can comply fully with the provisions of the tax law. So it is to strengthen the collection machinery, reinvigorate it, and re-inject dynamism to make it very strong and viable so that sustainable revenue collection can be achieved for sustainable socio-economic development of this country.
Very well.
This is what informed our movement to the tiptoe lane and the circle environment, but it will be extended to all other areas around the country.
Very well said, Mr. Gaskin. One thing that traders complained about is education, information, awareness. Indeed, they complained that you only sent an advert into the dailies just a day before, and today you move into operation. Is that your modus for branding?
Yeah, let me indicate to you that tax education, sensitization, and raising of tax consciousness to encourage voluntary compliance has always been ongoing. The Communication Public Affairs Department of the Ghana Revenue Authority has always intensified this education without let-up. So the accusation, I think, is inaccurate. Ghana Revenue Authority has engaged a number of associations, including GUTA and all other associations that you know. We have engaged them in several areas, you see, to explain details and then areas of ambiguity even within the law, particularly the new Income Tax Act of 2015 Act 896, the Value Added Tax Act 2013 Act 870. These education has been going on just to sensitize them. So I think that statement is misplaced.
All right. just before you go, Mr. Gaskin, because I know you are in a crucial meeting at this point, briefing the commissioner. But one thing they have said is that, okay, you have said that you would extend this exercise, but they are also saying, and I'm sure they told you, that they would have to resist you if you don't change the style of clamping down on them. It needs to be a win-win situation. So they are also mobilizing themselves, and they will make sure they resist you. How do you react to some of these remarks coming from the traders?
Yeah, in what manner are they going to resist it? Because infractions of the law...
They'll prevent you from closing down the shops.
Can be sanctioned. As I'm talking to you now, a number of them who I can label as not recalcitrant, but they are compliant, and they have visited our offices between the hours of 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Some have even discharged their tax obligations and have produced receipts, you see, to show their commitment to Ghana Revenue Authority and then to the state that they are ready to honor their tax obligations. So I don't see how some may be gathering momentum to resist this exercise, which is ongoing. After all, the exercise is geared towards mobilizing revenue for socio-economic development of this country. We all know that the state occasionally goes for loans and grants from donors. But currently, on the international scene, there is donor fatigue. So we should be able to generate our own resources for the developmental agenda of this country. So I don't see why they should do that. The law enforcement officers will take immediate action if any of them attempts to disturb the existing order.
All right, so you would ensure that the law enforcement agencies also deal with them if they attempt anything like that. Roughly,
to do that.
Do you have a figure of the number of shops you closed down today?
So far, provisionally, about 44 shops have been closed down. But those who have responded positively, we've opened the shops for them to continue operating. And I believe that by tomorrow, a number of them will respond positively by discharging their tax obligations to the state. And we will immediately open their shops to enable them carry out their productive.
I am so very grateful, Mr. Theophilus Gaskin, for joining me this evening to expatiate on some of these issues. He mentioned that over 44 shops were closed down today. Some have moved in to quickly rectify their tax obligations, and those ones have been opened. But you're hearing it here for the first time, because we would make sure we give you every one of those details. Mr. Theophilus Gaskin is a Chief Revenue Officer. He's also the Director of the tax force that is going around, and he is assured that they would move the length and breadth of the country to ensure that people comply with the VAT. If you have not done so, please move in and try to rectify the situations. Sepambo, you heard him. I'll just quickly want you to take your reactions, Nana.
Kweku, these things do not happen in a vacuum. You know, tragically, this is a knee-jerk reaction by the GRA, and I'll tell you why. In the 2016 budget, government projected total revenue of 38.1 billion Ghana cedis. Now, this 38.1 billion Ghana cedis, government projected that they were going to raise this amount of money through direct taxation of 42%, which translates to 16 billion Ghana cedis. So this sort of knee-jerk reaction by the GRA is in consonance with the Ministry of Finance directive, which at the end of the day is what the IMF is pushing us to do. Now, let me give you a case in point. In 2013, the IMF projected that Ghana's total revenue would be 12.6 billion. Our projected revenue in 2016 would be 8.2 billion, which means that there's going to be a shortfall of 4.4 billion Ghana cedis. And this shortfall is basically made up of the fall in cocoa and gold prices, which are major commodity prices, which is about 3 billion.
On the world market.
Exactly. And then about 1.4 billion on the oil market, which is the total of 4.4. So our economy already, in terms of the revenue projection, we are not meeting those targets, and it's a factor of currency, it's a factor of poor governance, it's a factor of commodities, it's a factor of not paying attention to revenue-generating activities. If you heard the gentleman, what he said was, this mobilization is going to be used for socio-economic activities. Now, socio-economic activities are basically made up of governance kind of issues where you don't really get much of a return. So if we are mobilizing all this money and somebody higher up comes out to say that the rationale behind it, just like the other day I went to Kempinski Hotel and I asked the guard, why are you searching my car? And the guard said, well, we are looking for grenades. On my way back, another guard, I asked him, so why are you searching cars? He says, we are looking for bombs. People in authority ought to know the reasons why they've been mandated to perform a certain task. Making statements as if we are going to use the law enforcement agencies, the police are going to go out there and brutalize people, is that it? If you want business to thrive, you don't make loose comments as if you are going to use the forceful mandate of the law enforcement agencies to be able to collect revenue. It is not done.
I beg to differ. You live in a country where you expect to have good roads. You expect to drive on asphalted roads. You expect, indeed, some social interventions because human beings are not supposed to live under conditionalities that are not right. So government is introducing some social interventions. So if you are, and we've talked about the informal sector and how we can rope them into the tax bracket. And you and I have criticized the government so badly for concentrating on the formal sector. Now they take an initiative to ensure that those in the informal sector respond to the 17.5% VAT, and then you turn around and say, no, this is a brutish way to go about it.
Well, there are two issues here. One is value for money, and two is the approach.
Okay.
If you want the informal sector to contribute effectively to the raising of funds in the economy, the first thing you need to do is to ensure that they are within the tax bracket. Now, the Social Security Organization in Ghana, which has the mandate to collect revenue or taxes for the formal sector, out of Ghana's working population of about 14 million people, the people who actually receive salaries and pay taxes are less than 1.5 million. So that means that the informal sector is close to about 13 million people. Now, if you were to widen the tax net and if you were to engage people in a responsible manner, where the duty that people pay at the port, the kind of bribes that people pay at the entry points, the environment which is so corrupt-based, the harassment where even within these places that these people operate, every day the AMA is there to collect taxes, they have to pay fees, and on top of that, now their shops are being closed down, and one of the reasons being given is that those who have paid goodwill. Now, what about the person who has gone to the bank and borrowed about 1.2 million Ghana cedis to construct an office building, and in order to defray the cost of the interest and the principal, he collects goodwill from the tenants so that he can pay that off? Now, if you want to tax the goodwill, What about the interest that the person is paying on that amount that he borrowed from the bank? So taxation has to be done in a way where the person who is paying the taxes feels that he's contributing towards, as he put it, social economic development. Taxation as a means of balancing your budget through forceful means, through closing down shops and threatening people to use law enforcement agencies to brutalize, maim, or kill them. That is not the way to go. Nobody is against national development. But if you want to do national development at the peril or threat of lives or brutalities, then you need to take a second look at it. Most importantly, if these issues are being driven by the IMF, right now, everything that we are doing, from freezing of employment in the public sector to all these taxes from real estate to airline VAT, which is killing the airline industry, and government seems to be blind to it. People who are taking domestic flights now, if you look at the numbers, has gone down by almost 60%. Because last year, Accra Kumasi used to cost somewhere around 140 Ghana cedis. Now, one way is 313 Ghana cedis. It's up more than 100%. If you go to the VIP stands and the other transportation units around Circle, it's choked. Because
they can't afford
nobody
the flight,
can afford
so
that. In and out alone, they'll go by road.
Transport.
So why can't government realize that this is killing the industry, notwithstanding the fact that the taxes and the fuel in Ghana is one of the highest in the subsector?
Now, maybe this will bring me to the point of discussing Ghana's debt situation. You see, we're indebted.
Yes.
And as a nation, we cannot continually only look at the bond market, where we would go out there, we float the bonds domestically, international, on the international front, and we are a middle-income country. Now, you and I have studied so well to know that the freebies that we used to enjoy is no more available. So I pity him a little bit. The finance minister said Tekpe is constrained, and he needs to raise money. So I would move off from the discussion from the mobile phone dealers and maybe move into Ghana's debt situation so that my viewer out there would get a clearer understanding of the picture here that we talk about.
Let me share something with you.
Tell me that we've moved out of the brackets. In fact, we are a risk country now when it comes to debt. Tell me it's not true.
Let me share something with you. Our first debt was issued in 2007. We issued $750 million at 8.5%.
2007?
Yes.
Probably around not the current president's regime.
I don't want us to go into
whose time it was.
You know, this is Ghana.
All right.
2013, we issued the second Eurobond of 1 billion at 7.875%. 2014, Ghana issued its third Eurobond, $1 billion at 8.125%. What is instructive to note is that in Ivory Coast, after years of war, an economy that had been destroyed through religious, sectarian, and tribal warfare, came out to the Euro market for the first time. And when we borrowed $1 billion at 8.125%, Ivory Coast also issued a bond for 750 million, and they paid 5.65%.
So
we paid 8.125.
We are more risky.
Exactly.
To the international investor.
Kenya issued a record-breaking $2 billion in 2014. One was for 500 million and the other one was for 1.5 billion. The 500 million, they paid 5.875, and on the 1.5 billion, they paid 6.875. 2015, Ghana issues another bond for 10.75%, $1 billion. Ivory Coast issues a bond for $1 billion, same amount, and Ivory Coast pays 6.625%. We paid 10.75. Poland issued a bond for 1.75 billion euro. They paid 0.875%.
But you're
less than
comparing
1%.
apples with oranges. Where you compare
I'm
Ghana
sure,
to
I'm
Poland.
sure when you go to the United Nations, Ghana and Poland would have the same vote and the same say when it comes to voting. Now, the point I'm trying to make is
quite interesting.
The point I'm trying to make is, Kweku, your interest is determined based on the perception of risk. Right now, Ghana's rating is at all-time low, the very worst we've ever been. We are 6 levels below the bottom. Moody's rates you on a scale of 21. We are B3, which means that nobody should give us a loan on a short-term basis. We have been rated as a country that cannot repay its debt in the short term, which is 1 year. B3 means that this is highly risky. If you give a loan to this country, it is highly speculative. And that is a terminology used for a country that may default. Our ability to borrow now is based on the perception of the market as rated by Moody's.
Look,
in the meantime, Kweku,
but I'll give you a feel.
Yes.
I mean, the finance minister will tell you, yes, of course, we've moved into the second quarter. The economy should be resilient moving into the second quarter. Dr. Issa Haku, the central bank governor, is very optimistic about the second half of the year. So then I might to take your point that we are too risky now as a nation. They said yes. At that point, the nation was not looking too good. But moving into the second half of the year, they expect, of course, we have crude oil prices juggling up and down, but not at an all-time low as it went into the 20s and the 30 US dollars. Today, it's around 48 US dollars around this morning. Last week, probably, or 2 weeks ago, it hit the 50 US dollar mark. So maybe there's a little hope.
Well, there are two factors that undermine the hope of the Honorable Finance Minister and the Honorable Governor. The first one is our total debt right now, as it stands, is 117 billion.
They have
Ghana
not
cedis.
officially come out to
well,
mention it.
It is not
Where
about,
are
they
you
don't
getting
need
your figures from? They have not come out officially to mention. They mentioned
Kweku,
that of 2015.
As at December, the official debt was 99 billion, as said by the Bank of Ghana.
Absolutely.
Since then, the government, every week, the government issues debt, from 3-year debt to 2-year debt to treasury bills. And we in the financial sector, we know exactly how much government has issued and what the total debt outstanding is. It is something that you can find from the Central Depository at the Securities Exchange market. It is available information. What I'm saying is, if you owe money and you go to the bank and the bank gives you information based on how much you've borrowed, you could go out there and say, I don't owe any money. But facts are facts. The government would want, remember the last time when the Bank of Ghana, the governor of the Bank of Ghana was asked what was the total debt, he deferred it to the Minister of Finance. That is an information that he wants the Minister of Finance to state. Minister of Finance never came out to say it until...
I'll give you a reason why, and that is because at points in time, maybe with the issue of bonds, it goes back to, so you don't add on the cost, but it goes back to service. Well,
let's assume that let's even assume.
Do you agree with me?
Let's assume that in December, Ghana owed 100 billion, as stated by the Bank of Ghana. Now, if there are 25 million Ghanaians, and you divide that figure, that 100 billion by 25 million Ghanaians, that means that every Ghanaian, if this amount was to be shared, every Ghanaian will owe 4 million Ghana cedis. So as you and I sit down right now, if Ghana's total debt was to be divided for every Ghanaian, you will be liable to pay $1 million or 4 million Ghana cedis. You can do the math.
I can't
100 billion. I'm saying that. I'm saying that.
I need to take my time to
I'm saying that worst case scenario. I'm not even going to add what has been issued to date. But government came out to say that their total debt as of December was 99.7, which is, let's say, 100 million. So let's assume that government has not even issued any debt to date. If they haven't, and it is 100 billion, that 100 billion divided by a population of 25 million Ghanaians translates into 4 million, which is about $1 million per person. That is fact. It is not about speculation. So at the end of the day, and the other issue is when people talk about there's hope the economy is going to rebound in the second quarter, what are the perimeters? What has happened to our industrial base? What has happened to the improvement in energy? What has happened to the reduction in interest rates to get the private sector to borrow more and be able to spend more and be able to get the economy moving?
I'll tell you what has happened.
So there's one thing with wishful thinking. I mean, maybe I stay in Kumasi. And in Kumasi and around my farm, around the Jura and those peripheral areas, Dumsor is still a thing that has come to stay with us. And when you wake up and the lights are on, all you ask yourself is, when are they going to turn the lights off?
But Nana,
and I'm talking
you have
about...
mentioned yours. Let me mention not state institutions, but business organizations like the AGI that would conduct the Afrobarometer survey and tell you that business confidence has improved in the country, primarily because a lot of businesses have confidence that the energy situation has improved, not totally, not referring to the recent issues of Dumsor. But I'm going on institutional information available.
At what cost, Kweku?
Oh no! Don't mention cost. You mentioned the short.
No, I'm saying that you know you cannot look at things in isolation. What I'm saying is, if it has
with the AGI information
you
available.
are, but I'm saying that if you are going to deal with the AGI, especially the AGI industries,
that's right.
And if you listen to recent pronouncements by companies about the billing systems of the ECG, electricity went up supposedly by 60%. Water went up close to about 50%. Now, what kind of business environment can survive whereby the best interest rate you can get is between 30 to 32%, because the Bank of Ghana prime rate...
the PURC was called in to halt it immediately.
But I'm saying that why do we always have this knee-jerk reaction? What kind of government always has to wait for something to happen for them to react? Recently, there was this speech by the Minister of Finance that they were going to tax pensions. You remember, there was going to be a tax on pensions. And then it took the president to come out to say that, no, we are not going to introduce any new taxes. And then the minister says that he was misquoted. Okay. In a reputable newspaper like the Daily Graphic, where people attended at Labadi Beach Hotel, now you're saying that you were misquoted. How was he misquoted? The IMF would want us to even tax Ghanaians for even the air they breathe. That is where we've reached right now. Because there is not a single point. Where is there any place in Ghana right now where if taxes are not being increased, new taxes are not being introduced? The fact of the matter is, it gets to a point where you need to put a brake to everything. I am not saying the government has done a poor job. Don't get me wrong.
No, I agree.
They've had a tough time. You know, if you look at the assumptions, oil prices, 2015, were budgeted about between $80 to $90 per barrel.
I get you so
commodities
well.
And everything.
You'll give me a little while to take this break because it's getting interesting right here. When I come back, we would still stay on the subject a little bit, but don't forget that inflation has also inched up marginally from 18.7% to 18.9%. So we would want to get much details on this particular development, even as we also look at some other development in and around the business circles. We talk about growth rate again, and it looks like Ghana is lagging behind. Kenya, Ivory Coast, Senegal. We want to look at some of these issues. Definitely at a state of affairs. And if it's about a state, then we are here to look at it, especially when it's business. And it's a Thursday. We'll be back shortly after this break. It is still State of Affairs. My name is Kweku Temin. We're looking at several business issues. My guest, Nana Pambo, who is joining us to touch on some of the issues that I've raised concerning the Ghanaian economy. Now, we've looked at several issues, so we want to move away from Ghana's debt situation, indeed the revenue collection and the like, and now focus critically on inflation and inflation inching up and maybe projecting into the future, and also getting a feel of other matters when it comes to the Ghanaian economy. And when I talk about other matters, fuel prices going down, our GDP growth rate indeed now lagging as Ivory Coast, Kenya and Senegal all going above us when you look at the IMF projections. I mean, so it really is a difficult time for us as Ghanaians, and Nana Pambo has assured me that we'll do much justice to the subject. So let me come to you, Nana. It doesn't look too good for us as a country around this time when you talk about our growth potential. I mean, I would not want to give you all the highlights, but long story short, Ivory Coast is doing better, projecting above 8-point-something growth. When you look at Kenya, they've also moved and above us, and Ghana anticipated so much to grow around 4.5%, but it looks like even that should be difficult for us as a country. What didn't we do right?
Well, fundamentally, you have about 70% of your population engaged in agriculture and fishing. 70% of your population. Now, we look at the facts. Contribution of GDP, agriculture to GDP, has increased consistently from 39% in 2008 to 19% in 2015. Whereas services, which is basically the multinationals, the banks, the telcos, companies who export and repatriate about 100% of their earnings, contributes 52% of your GDP. Now, something is just not right. Your population, 70% of them, only contribute 19% to your GDP. And foreigners who repatriate all their funds, bring in foreigners to work here, contribute 52%. Now, in 2015, for the first time in our country's history, the budgetary allocation to the agricultural sector was 355 million, indicating a 10.1% decrease in government's budgetary allocation to agriculture. In addition to this, there was no provision of any budget support whatsoever for extension farmers. These are the technical people who go into the fields to show the farmers the modern methods and the way for them to improve yield. We've taken their budget, their support out of the budget entirely. No more funding for them. Because maybe we want to introduce GMO and we don't need these people to be technical in that field. Now, if you look at cocoa, for example, Ghana has 3 million hectares of land devoted to cocoa. The maximum we produce is about 800,000 metric tons, which means that the yield per hectare is only 300 kilograms. 300 kilograms per hectare. Indonesia, on the other hand, has 740,000 hectares. We have 3 million hectares. Indonesia has 740,000 hectares. And they produce 750,000 metric tons of cocoa per year, which is about 1,000 metric tons per hectare. Compared to our 300 kilos.
Should I give you the reason why probably this is so? Do you know? Do you know why?
Let me make my last point. Let me make my last point. Fishing.
Oh, no, I want you to stay on the cocoa. Okay. Now, do you know why Ghana's cocoa is termed as of high quality? Because we are not doing mass production, but high quality beans. Probably that is the
factually
reason.
Incorrect.
If Indonesia would inject
that is factually incorrect.
No, but if
the reason why we are not doing well is our trees are very old It is our elderly population who are doing the cocoa farming.
You
we are
recruited
losing
young people into the cocoa sector.
How? To do
around
what?
This time.
To do
of
what?
Course,
Kweku?
there's much noise about it.
I'm saying the young men to do what? To go and spend
into
the next
farming.
5 years of their lives.
Have you not heard anything on
saying
cocoa
that,
roads?
I'm saying that, Kweku, let's not even go there. If you want to talk about cocoa roads, then I'm going to start.
I can't allow you to just make all these allegations.
Government has gone out. Government has gone out.
You've heard about the youth into cocoa farming.
Government has gone out to borrow $2 billion for the next cocoa syndication.
Of course. Today it happened in the UK. We talked about it.
On this borrowing, it is based on an assumption that we are going to produce. Do you know the assumption? How much cocoa? 900,000
metric tons.
And how much?
And
then how much they intend to sell it for on the market?
3,100. 100, sure.
So, okay. Now, those two factors, those two assumptions. The first one is last year we did less than 700,000 metric tons of cocoa. Less. In the end, we had to buy from Ivory Coast to meet the orders that we had. So that 900,000. I can't
substantiate you bought from Ivory Coast.
I'm saying that, because I'm not going to sit here and I have nothing to gain. I'm not here. Hold on, Kweku, please. I have nothing to gain. I'm a nationalist. I'm not here on behalf of a political party or to do any work for a political party. I'm here as a nationalist who has done his research. If you look at the materials in front of me, and I'm talking about the facts based on the research
as a moderator
I've done. Fine. So
to tell you,
unless you have done your research,
of course,
whereby you can counter what I'm saying to say that no, Nana, last year Cocoa Board did 800 or 900. I think you need to give me the benefit of the doubt. And hopefully the next time we meet, you can correct any inconsistencies that you found out in my research. You don't want me to correct it now. Do you have your facts?
I have my facts.
How much did we do last year?
Let me tell you. You talk about we buying from Ivory Coast, and I want to explain the facts to you.
Yes.
Now, some processors here, of course, which are looking for the lower grade. Maybe Barry Calibo, let me bring one of them in, Cocoa to Ton and the like. Not getting the smaller beans, had to buy from Ivory Coast. Of course, Ghana did have its commitment to its borrowers of the cocoa syndicated loan, that they had to export some high-grade beans to them.
Precisely.
So these companies were shortchanged. If lack of vocabulary, they needed the smaller beans. Right. And reason why they had to look at elsewhere in Africa, and which Ivory Coast was included. So if you say government bought from Ivory Coast, that is where I say I beg to differ.
You didn't let me. If you had allowed me to land, Kweku, you understood where I was going with this.
You can land now.
Now, if last year you couldn't do more than 700,000 and you had to buy from other countries to fill your orders, why do you think, based on the fact that last year your crop season is not doing very well because of the erratic rainfall, climatic changes is having a major effect on drought and production, fertilizers are not getting to the farmers on time, and they are not even available. Fertilizers are being rumored to be sold in other neighboring countries. Farmers are complaining. There's going to be smuggling, which is a normal way of doing business in the cocoa season, when the cocoa season comes in. What makes you think, without any interventions whatsoever, and our trees and the continuous decline, because if you keep on growing the same plants on the same soil, based on the same factors, the law of diminishing returns will kick in. So this 900,000 metric ton premise that we have assumed is just not going to happen. Secondly, Kweku, we don't have to wait. I mean, so why do we do statistics? Why do we do forecasts? Why do we have economics? Then economists will be thrown out of the window.
Cocoa Research Institute.
Please.
Do you know Craig?
Secondly, I've lived in Craig for a long time.
Hybrid seedlings.
Now, your 3,100. How long? If farmers are being given seedlings, you know the germination period for cocoa to start production. So if you give cocoa farmers seedlings, let's say even 3 years ago, the cocoa is not bearing fruit today.
So in your opinion, it will not happen?
I am saying that if you go and borrow 2 billion on the assumption that you're going to do 900,000 metric tons of cocoa and sell it in a market where, number one, you have absolutely no control of the prices. Ghana as a country, or the whole of Africa as a continent, has no determination in the price of cocoa on the world market.
Oh, well aware of that.
Okay, so if your premise is that you're going to sell the cocoa for $3,100 and you are going to produce 900,000 metric tons and you are going to make $2.7 billion and you are going to borrow $2 billion and have a profit of $700 million, the fact of the matter is your assumptions do not hold water. I would have expected government to have been conservative based on our high debt profile, to have borrowed somewhere around maybe $1.2 billion on the assumption that we'll be able to do between 600 to 700,000 metric tons. And worst case scenario, if the commodity prices
are you saying we
fall
too much?
Yes, if it falls to, let's say, 2,500, even at 600,000, and it falls to 2,500, and we borrowed 1.2 billion, we'll still make about 1.3 billion, and still it wouldn't be too painful to pay. But out of this 2 billion, look at what we did with it. We paid legal fees of about 170,000 just for a hotel to sign and execute the documents. We spent almost $20,000. Now, you are going to the market. You are on your knees.
These legal fees and the like has happened on
several
government regimes.
If you are, I'm saying that, I don't want us to talk about several. See, that's the problem with politicians and Ghanaians. Everything is about what the previous government. So why did we vote this government in? We voted them in because we have confidence in them. We know they will do a better job, and we expect the very best from them. Forget about the previous regime.
Anytime you're going for a loan,
I'm saying the issue is, I'm saying that no, we have lawyers in Ghana. We have lawyers in Ghana. Okay, this is a straightforward syndication. It's just a term sheet because you have the orders. It's all just ways of cutting fat out of the surface. If I want to borrow money, and I'm going into the market with my lawyers from the Attorney General's department behind me, I don't need any lawyer to craft out a term sheet for me. We have the whole Ministry of Justice with very capable lawyers to assist the Minister of Finance to do this for next to nothing. But instead, we are going to find a way to skim from the top. If you are in a country like Ghana, where your debt profile, GDP to debt, is now hovering close to 80%, you must be very prudent and careful. And I'm surprised that the IMF, who claim that they are the managers of fiscal discipline, allows Cocoa Board to do this at the blind side.
I'm running out of time, but
sure.
A quick touch also on Ghana's GDP growth rate, which has not
GDP growth
because
rate,
this is what led us to this conversation. I mean,
let me do the comparison and let me show you. 2013, Ghana GDP growth 7.3%. Ivory Coast GDP growth 8.7%. Kenya GDP growth 6.2%. Now 2014, Ghana GDP growth 4.2%, Ivory Coast 8.4%, Kenya 5.8%. 2015, GDP growth Ghana 3.9%, Ivory Coast 8.4%, Kenya 8.4%. Inflation, Ivory Coast 2015 inflation 2.6%. Kenya inflation 2015 6%. Ghana inflation, I know I'm going to make you feel miserable, but I'll still tell you. Inflation Ghana 2012 8.8, very impressive. 2013
single-digit inflation.
Yes.
Of course, government has the hope of bringing it down further from the 18.9.
2013 13.5%. 2014 17%. 2015 17.4%. 2016 ended at 17.7%. June, as we speak today, 18.9%. Now look at our Bank of Ghana policy rate. By the way, the policy rate is also something I have an issue with. A policy rate is the interest rate that banks give to their best customers. That name ought to be changed. It's a misnomer.
You want the name policy rate changed?
It is not the name. I don't want it. It is inconsistent in financial terminology to call the Bank of Ghana's rate.
No, you can't reinvent the wheel. We can't spend time on that.
It's not a matter of that. It's not. No.
I mean,
it is called the base. It is the base rate, not the policy rate.
Sure.
That's why I'm saying that it's a misnomer. Okay. Whether in the UK it is the base rate, in the United States it's also the base rate. If you are in investment banking, when somebody says policy rate, it means
let me
commercial
touch on
banks
our
to
social media.
Okay. No.
I'm just getting
I just want
information.
I want to get this rates out because you asked for them. GDP growth, I think we've touched on that. Bank of Ghana policy rate, so-called, 2012, 15%, 2013, 16%, 2014, 21%, 2015, 26%, 2016, 26%. As we speak now, 26%. Now, if you want to get your private sector to grow, in the United Kingdom, they haven't changed our equivalent of a policy rate since 2009, since the global financial meltdown. The US hasn't done that either. And their so-called policy rates are below 1% because they want the private sector to be comfortable. They want the private sector to borrow. They want the private sector to be the engine of growth, whereby they are not going to go out there, number one, crowd out the private sector with debt, and two, to have interest rates
you have
where
to give me the time
private
because
sector
this
can
is
borrow
really
from.
Sponsored, and I would have to touch on it. Now, our social media platform is kindly brought to you by MTN. Tonight, we are grateful that you've given us the opportunity. Let me run you by some information that I have. Nana Kwame says, I love the discussions tonight. Thank you very much for watching, Nana Kwame. But he says, what happened at the Tiptoe Lane is unfortunate. So we would say, well, closing down of shops, again, the institution believes that that is the right thing to do. So Nana Kwame, thank you very much for sending in your message. Again, we have a message from Kwabna Ano, from Dodowa. Kwabna Ano, you were saying that our leaders should be mindful of posterity when taking decisions, and I'm sure you are looking at the situation that came up with, I think, Ghana's GDP and the cocoa syndicated and the like. So you're saying that our leaders should be mindful when taking decisions. Well, Nana, you've been hitting so hard. People are telling
the last point. Kweku, let me just say something mindful, on just 1 second, Kweku.
So those are some messages we have from our social media platforms. Thank you very much, MTN, for making this possible. Nana, let's go on. Your final point before.
Fishing. Ghana's total coastline is 521 kilometers. That's like a journey to Kumasi from Accra and back.
And yet,
2013, Ghana imported 900,000 metric tons. Ghana consumed 900,000 metric tons of fish, of which we imported 450,000 metric tons. 2015, we consumed 1.1 million metric tons, of which we imported 500,000. 2016, between 2015 and 2016, we imported 600,000 metric tons of fish at a cost of $200 million US.
All right.
In the meantime, look at our coastline. Now,
bad fishing practice. It was the first.
It's not bad fishing practice.
Maybe
no cold stores, no supply chain, no assistance, no previous fuel.
I'll give you another time, sometime.
So,
but if you go to Shama, they really do have a coast store there.
One coast store?
Commission, not at least you said.
Have you been to Secondary lately?
I have told you. But thank you very much, Nana Pambo. Nana Fredia Ajiman Pambo is executive chairman, Invest Pro Limited. Indeed, tonight some controversial issues. We're sincerely grateful for your time, but we're grateful that you kept faith with us and stayed with us throughout. Same time next Thursday, I'll be here. It would be State of Affairs, and we promise you we're going to give you an awesome time with the business issues concerning the state. Nana Banamwa comes in tomorrow with some more. A very good evening and enjoy your time.